The story begins with a lively party at the resort of Casablanca, where Western Valentine is taking a break in the middle of the holiday. While Western was at the bar, a man wearing a hood pulls Valentina's handbag, but she held on tightly, even scratching his arm as she turned around. Western asks if he should chase the thief, but she said it was not necessary. After the panic has passed, they enjoy the fireworks display at night, a tradition at the resort. The next day, they woke up late for their scheduled outing. The ship's owner is named Redmine, and he has started to lose patience when a tourist named Company is about to arrive and offers to double the price. He is accompanying his wife Larissa and daughter Eliza, who are eager to take the boat. Rimini says his ship has been booked in advance, and this situation caught the attention of a man named Gabio. He approached the tit and immediately agreed to his conditions. While carrying luggage inside, Gabin realized that he had forgotten to hide the true owner of the ship. A Coast Guard officer named Nicole walks by and announces that a storm is coming. He saw the Tit family leave on the Catch Me ship. The ship is owned by his friend Can, but he didn't know that Bites was in direct control of the ship. At this time, Valentina was still in the hotel. She found that she had received a few messages from her boss and decided to leave her phone in her room to enjoy the day without worrying about anything on the train. The way she and Larissa bet that whoever catches the biggest fish will get a seat on the flight home. Eliza is not very interested in the competition, but her father convinces her to put down her phone for a few minutes on the other side of the train to dispose of the murder weapon, leaving a trail of blood in the water. The knife sank to the bottom of the sea, and soon after, a terrifying ghost flashes over it. At the same time, Tit was excited when he felt the fishing line being pulled hard, and Larissa encouraged her daughter to help her dad. The calf took advantage of their distraction to get the money in the wallet. The family's excitement was diminished when the cadet pulled up the fishing line and brought up a shark head that had apparently eaten the animal's remaining fecal shark that had been eaten suddenly by a larger predator. The ship shook violently, causing the tit to fall into the water. Larissa and Eliza began screaming and crying out his name, and he came to reassure them that it was all right. But before he could get to the ship, something pulled him hard and the water around him began to turn red. To see what was happening, and also scared trying to save Eliza's dad ended up falling into the sea, and the shark lost no time. Larissa couldn't stop screaming when she saw her daughter being swallowed by a predator, not caring about her despair. Gabe throws a life raft into the sea and begins to turn away. Larissa's pain only ends when the shark turns around and swallows Miss Western and Valentina, who has just arrived at the pier. Rimini complains about the delay and asks to see the necessary documents because he doesn't plan to go along. Western proves that he has a full license, and Ramin explains where to put the diving equipment. He also warned them about the impending storm and reminded them that there was a phone number in the cabin in case there was a problem. The trip began peacefully until suddenly the ship came to a strong stop, making both people panic. Western said he would check to see what the problem was because he had worked with boats before and would probably know how to fix it without calling anyone on land. Listening to her talk to her colleague Magog, he saw that when he received a worried call from the canal captain's wife, while he himself had seen the canal ship leave with a family earlier. The nun expressed that he thought it would be best to patrol, and Mragawo said that she could go for him. On the ship of the Germinii, the West was trying to repair the ship, and Valentina said it was time to dive into the sea. He plans to propose to Valentina underwater, and he secretly puts the ring in a plastic bag. Upon arrival at the deck, he saw that Valentina was quite far from the ship, and she took advantage of him to tease him for being slow. She dived down again and found a statue at the bottom of the sea. Western arrived just as she was taking pictures, and was almost startled when he touched her unexpectedly. They continued to explore and observe the fish. Unbeknownst to him, the shark was lurking very close to swimming among the wreckage of his ship. Valentina began to take more photos. Western decided this was the ideal time and took the ring to propose, but the plastic bag slipped out of his hand and surfaced. Worried, he swam in that direction so that Valentina was alone at the bottom. She began to look around trying to figure out where he had gone and was suddenly confronted by a shark swimming fast towards her. The diving equipment obscuring her screams, but her panic was palpable. She swam as fast as she could and managed to get into a hole in the ship. However, she had no way to signal to her boyfriend and was now almost trapped inside a quick thought. She sets up her camera to shoot multiple flashes in succession, but anticipating this makes the shark angry, and distracted. While Valentina escaped from the ship on the other side, she swam to the surface of the water just as the monster bit the camera. Western was also there, but the two were far apart. She warns him that there's a shark in the water, and Western says he will trick it away. So the shark's salary appeared very close to Valentina, less than a meter away from her, but it suddenly swam away when Western began to hit the hull of the ship instead of climbing the ladder. He bravely faced the shark with an oxygen cylinder. The animal finally let him go, and both of them were lucky to return to the ship. Valentina felt dizzy and unconscious because she had risen so quickly. She wanted to leave, but Western said that the ship's engine would better attract the shark than wait for it to drift away. Later, Valentina began accusing him of running away to the surface of the water as soon as the shark appeared without even trying to warn him. She realizes that he can't explain and keep secrets. At the same time, he told her about the proposal ring. She cried, and they were both so moved that Western decided to propose even without the ring, using a plastic seal instead. He knelt down on one leg and asked, "Will you marry me?" And Valentina was about to say yes when something hit the ship with a terrible force, causing them both to fall. This made Western realize that waiting was not an option. He pulled up the anchor and tried to use the radio, but the ship was hit again. This time, Valentina fell and hit her head. Unconscious, Western panicked and rushed to help her. The shark continued to crash into the hull incessantly until it overturned the ship and both fell into the water. Valentina remained unconscious and Western had to pull her up. The whole side of the ship was overturned. The shark's dorsal fin continues to circle them. With great effort, he was able to resuscitate her and explain what had happened. She cried and said she couldn't see clearly because it might be the result of the blow to the head. Western was very worried and said they needed to call someone right away. However, her phone was left at the hotel, and it was in 3 lots inside the overturned ship. Western began to try to test her eyesight and concluded that she could detect movement. Although not perfect, he asked her to watch out and tap on the hull if the shark disappeared or got too close. Valentina was very worried. He realizes that he intends to die because of the phone. Nevertheless, he convinces her that he has no other choice and leaves her with a water pipe to defend herself. He went into the water carefully and quickly found the 3 lots, but Valentina lost track of the fish. The predator got too close when Western turned around and bit him in the leg and used a water pipe to hit the animal successfully. He was afraid to leave enough for her to bandage his wounds. At least the phone was still working and Western was able to get in touch with Nicole. He explained everything that had happened and said that they were close to an island but could not send their exact location because the signal there was not good. As she said, there are already rescue teams looking for another ship and will send them in as quickly as possible. Over the radio, he warned Magok about the shark, and she was shocked because the last time the shark appeared there was 5 years ago. She also said that she had not yet found the captain's ship. The situation couldn't be worse. The announced storm finally arrived and heavy rain began to fall. Moreover, the shark seemed to be approaching them. Each time it swam around the ship. Valentina said that she would rather venture into the water than suffer bad luck and asked Western to tie the ship's rope around her waist. She still couldn't see clearly and he couldn't swim, but the plan was to combine what everyone could do. Valentina would swim to the island and Western's job was to pull the rope tight if she deviated because she wouldn't be able to adjust her path without being seen. This is a very risky plan, but maybe their only chance because the rain can mask the noise made by the Valentina swimming. Western taught her how to fasten her seatbelt and tie the phone to her when it was time to start 20 know where the monster was. However, Valentina jumped into the water and started swimming. The shark appeared shortly afterwards and Western shouted for her to stop. He rubbed the wetsuit against the wound on his leg and threw it into the water as a bait. Valentina continued to swim wildly as the shark swam away. With great effort, Western balances on the hull until the animal leaves. Then he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Valentina had reached the island. She tied the rope to a rock and began to pull, but the ship didn't move any further. The shark is blocking, and it is not safe to carry out this strategy until it leaves. However, not all is lost, as Nicole calls Valentina to inform her that the rescue ship is arriving on the island. She informs Western, but he says he can't see anything. Mango also tells Nicole that there are no capsizing ships around, but she finds a Tamarin safe, drifting into the only passenger on board is the canal's body. Mago announces the discovery and explains that there are signs of a shark attack on board, but that it is not the cause of the death of the vulture. Nicole concludes that Valentina and Magok are on 2 different islands. This means that the island where Valentina is located is called Delivery, and due to the tide, the island will be flooded at night. Mago won't be able to get there before it sinks. So Nicole warns Valentina that rescuers will arrive by plane and informs her that the tide will rise soon. More and more worried, she began to pull the rope with all her strength and succeeded in pulling the ship out of the trap. Nevertheless, her small progress was interrupted when a shark attacked the hull. Panic! The rope slipped out of Valentina's hand, and she couldn't see it anymore, while she fumbled to the bottom. The shark continued to approach ruthlessly, and Western was just gaining balance on the ship when she finally found the rope, a man who began to speak Spanish right behind her. Very majestic and still unable to see clearly. She told the stranger to back off after that. We see that it is. The killer stole the other ship. Knowing nothing about this, Lena felt reassured when he held out his hand and began to speak in English, explaining that he had also arrived on the island after an accident. Western doesn't like to see his future wife with a stranger on a deserted island. However, Bites helped Valentina pull the rope, and this made a big difference helping the ship get to shore faster. Eventually, the couple reunites in a kiss and Western thanks for the help. He said he had lit a fire on the inside of the island and invited 2 people to participate. Talking about Valentina's eyesight, Gabe mentions that the same thing happened to a friend of his, and the chances of restoring this situation are very low. Western tried to change the subject and asked Gabe how he was here. He told a long story about a fun trip with his parents. In it, his sister is learning to fish. The part about the shark attack is quite similar to what happened to the Tit family. But Western and Valentina both sent their condolences and reassured him that the 3 of them would get through this. When Valentina mentioned that the Coast Guard was on her way to the station, her expression was more worried than relieved, and Western also became worried when she learned that the tide was rising and asked if they could use the raft if the plane was delayed. Gaboov said that the raft was not good and that it was better to use their ship and asked for some private time with Western, and Valentina expressed that she did not believe Gable very much because the story he told had many blurs. However, Gabe is the only one who is physically healthy, and Western says that without him, their chances of survival would be much lower. So, they began to move the ship out of the rock, with plans to stay on there until rescues arrive. While 2 men do this, Valentina stumbles over something and starts screaming when she realizes it's a partially eaten person. Gabby recognizes Custis and lies to everyone that it is his father who is close. He also found a plastic bag and relied on the shape of the small box. He speculated it was jewelry and put it in his pant pocket. Valentina was very scared and said that they needed to leave here quickly. Western explained that the ship was in good condition but was still stuck on the rock because he and Gabe did not have enough strength to push it away. She then suggested they could use sharks to help propel the ship, and to do this, they need a kind of bait. Gabriel says that the fish won't be enough to satisfy the monster's hunger and suggests that they tie the companies close to him as bait. The rest of the people were horrified by the idea, but Gabe cried and said that his father would be happy if he could save at least him. His performance was quite convincing, and all 3 agreed to try at least once. It seems that the shark does not pay attention to the smell, and the plan will fail. But then it suddenly bit into the carcass and dragged the ship into the water for a few seconds. As planned, the rope slipped off with the force of traction, allowing the train to free the 2 men to climb up. Western left the phone for Valentina and asked her to cling to a rock until he came to pick her up. The water was up to her knees when she called. Alert that the plane is taking off now and will arrive within an hour when she says that there's a 3rd survivor as isolated, i.e. connecting the dots and tells. The couple didn't believe him, explaining everything that happened on the other ship was unfortunate. The train was too far away and she couldn't warn her boyfriend. Western could only repair the engine and bring the ship closer. After dark, he called Valentina to come closer, but now she could barely see anything and the current was very strong. So, Western decided to leave the ship to pick her up and tell her to watch out for the shark. Valentina began to use his voice to direct her steps very slowly to avoid sudden movements. They met halfway through in a hug, while the shark swam right next to him. The couple spoke very quietly, telling him what Nicole had said about the murder of Western, saying that he would take care of it after they came out of the country, and it started to get cold, and the girl put on her shirt before going to help the other 2. As Valentina began to climb onto the ship, the shark appeared and threw her back into the water in a panic, and Western began to step back and shout for her to get up quickly. And the shark swam quickly towards him. Valentina screams when she sees him face the animal with punches. He seems to be winning the fight and starts swimming back, but never makes it to the ship because the shark attacks him from below. Earlier, Gabe panicked and began to leave the train without waiting for Valentina to come to her luck. The repairs were not very good and the ship was stopped abruptly. She climbed into the train silently and walked forward gently, suddenly closed the raft throttle once. She accused him of trying to escape, leaving 2 people behind. Then he thought she had been eaten by a shark and stretched out his hand again, asked her to trust him. But that's when Valentina noticed a scratch on his hand, and the hoodie had something stuck in the sleeve, and she discovered it was her own pocket strap. Gabby still tried to explain, but in the end, he dug a deeper hole for himself. She vented her anger on his arm and said that the authorities knew everything he had done. No more pretending. He kicked her down and said he would disappear long before the plane arrived. However, he said that he liked her and regretted not being able to be with her. Even more panicked, Valentina locked herself in the cabin and looked for something to defend herself. Gabe kicked the door down with several kicks and sat right next to her, saying that everything has gone too far, but he is not a bad person. When she lifted a metal bar to hit him, he grabbed her hand and became even angrier. Then, she grabbed a piece of wood with nails and hit him in the face. He screamed in pain, pulled the nail out of the cheek, didn't realize that blood was dripping through the slits of the deck. The shark was immediately attracted and began to crash into the ship, with such power that it destroyed the hull. Water began to spill into the cabin, and Valentina could only hear Gabin's screams begging for help before disappearing into a pool of red blood. The only item that emerged was the stolen box. Valentina took it and put the proposal ring on her finger, determined to save herself. She adjusted the wiring. It was like she had seen Western do before and swam to the bunker cover on the deck, using her strength to open the lid. The shark was close when she started the engine, and as soon as the ship started moving, it started attacking from below. Valentina then reaches her limit and goes to the front of the ship to confront the enemy. She held a sharp steel bar and waited for the next attack. Mago and Nicole are arriving by plane when the final battle begins. The shark plunged into the ship and Valentina hit it on the head several times, then stabbed the body of the animal with a steel bar. She finally defeats the predator. It began to sink into the sea. However, the ship quickly sank. But luckily, this happens as soon as the rescue arrives. Valentina sees the plane, but Mragowo can't see her in the middle of the ocean. They almost left when the traditional fireworks display began to illuminate the sky. Only then did Magok see Valentina waving, and she was finally saved. Looking at the proposal ring with a sad look, she accepted Western's proposal.